For the love of fall, Starbucks pumpkin spice lattes and pumpkin cream cold brews are back. Smooth espresso dashed with pumpkin pie spice and velvety whipped cream. Or cold brew topped with pumpkin cream cold foam fit for the season. Your pumpkin awaits. Order today in the Starbucks app.
Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile, the podcast. This is episode 189 called Kersti Bryan. This episode is sponsored by SURROGACY. As so many of us listening today know, facing infertility and having to go with a plan B for how you become a parent can be emotionally and physically heartbreaking. When you're ready to explore your options, Surrogacy and Egg Donation is ready to hear your story and to talk about all the different options for parenthood. Circle offers a variety of programs that fit your needs, and they have a 99.3% success rate for parents. Plus, 44% of Circle staff has gone through personal experience as surrogates, egg donors, or parents through surrogacy, IVF, or adoption. Circle has licensed social workers on staff who support intended parents, as well as private parent networking groups, so you can connect with other parents going through similar experiences. If you would like to learn more about surrogacy and egg donation, check out Circle's parent team. They are ready to help you. To learn more, go to circlesurrogacy.com or call the Circle team at 617-439-9900. Again, that's circlesurrogacy.com or call them at 617-439-9900. Thanks, Circle. Today's episode is sponsored by Extend Fertility. Since we're talking about taking charge of your fertility, knowing what's happening in your body, and your fertility treatment options when trying naturally isn't going the way you planned, it only makes sense for me to partner with Extend Fertility, a fertility clinic based in the heart of Manhattan. Extend offers next-generation care by combining exceptional clinic experience with a small practice environment where your needs are their main focus. Extend Fertility was founded on the premise that democratizing fertility care could ultimately change the industry and deliver better results. Since they started offering all infertility treatment options, Extend Fertility has helped thousands of patients on their fertility journeys, putting them in charge of their fertility future instead of letting time dictate the path. Extend wants to make all fertility services within reach financially, offering rates 40% below the national average cost. Extend Fertility also believes in being personal and data-driven. They're passionate about delivering fertility care in a more compassionate and transparent way. And to help proactively explore your fertility options, Extend has an exclusive offer for all Infertile AF listeners. If you schedule a consultation with Extend and mention that you're an Infertile AF listener, you will receive $500 off your first IVF or egg freezing cycle. You guys, that's huge, $500 off. So like we said, accessibility is very important to them. To schedule your consultation and to learn more, visit extendfertility.com. Again, it's extendfertility.com for $500 off your first IVF or egg freezing cycle when you mention Infertile AF. Thanks, Extend, and thanks, Dr. Klein. Today's episode is sponsored by PROOV, a women's health company dedicated to providing information and solutions on key fertility hormones so they can reach their goals faster. PROOV founder Amy Beckley, PhD, invented the first and only FDA-cleared PDG test after her own battle with infertility. When she learned that her 7 miscarriages and 2 rounds of IVF could have been prevented by an inexpensive progesterone supplement, she set out to help other women better understand the success of their ovulation from home. PROOV's newest kit, Complete, allows women to measure all 4 key cycle hormones that impact conception from the comfort of home so they can get pregnant faster. With just one test kit, you can better understand ovarian reserve, identify up to 6 fertile days, and check for successful ovulation. And now, the free PROOV Insight app takes your hormone knowledge one step further by providing numeric hormone levels, info about what they mean, and personalized action plans to help you reach your fertility goals faster. That's not all, guys. PROOV also offers an entire suite of at-home hormone tests and hormone-supporting products to empower you with the right information on your journey. Okay, so you know I love female-founded companies and products that can truly benefit anybody battling infertility. So definitely check out PROOV. It's spelled P-R-O-O-V. You can go to PROOVtest.com, PROOVtest.com, and you can enter the code ALLIE25 and you'll get 25% off your first PROOV order of $25 or more. Again, Infertile AF listeners are getting a special discount code. So go to PROOVtest.com, PROOVTEST.com, enter the code ALI25, ALI25, and you'll get 25% off your first PROOV order of $25 or more. Thanks, PROOV. This episode is supported by RECEPTIVA DX. The RECEPTIVA DX test can help couples struggling with unexplained infertility. Getting pregnant isn't easy, as so many of you know. Many couples struggle with infertility, and unexplained infertility can be particularly frustrating. Women facing unsuccessful IVF may not know that endometriosis is the underlying cause, a disease that can impact the success rates of IVF treatments and often has no symptoms. The RECEPTIVA DX test can help identify endometriosis before an embryo transfer, and it has the potential to save women the stress, anxiety, and cost of multiple failed IVF attempts. The good news is, multiple studies show treatment of women with a positive RECEPTIVA DX test improves live birth outcomes by over 50%. RECEPTIVA DX can detect all stages of endometriosis and help women make better decisions in planning for pregnancy. You can learn more at receptivadx.com or download their app, which is also called RECEPTIVA DX. Okay, guys, so today I'm talking to an absolutely incredible woman. She's super dynamic, super creative, huge advocate for other women. Her name is Kersti Bryan. She's an actress. She's a director. She recently starred in Tales of the Walking Dead, and she also has directed an incredible short film called Egg Party, which just came out and which tackles the incredibly tough topic of pregnancy and infertility. So she's going to talk about that today on the show. So in the movie, which is really interesting and cool, and I've watched it like 3 times already, it's about 6 women in their late 30s who are gathering together for a not-so-sober afternoon to laugh and dye Easter eggs and to contemplate their fertility. So I don't want to give anything else away, but Kersti and I are going to talk about her movie, and I'm also going to talk to her about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We're going to talk about maternal health and how we can improve the situation for women everywhere. And we're going to talk about where Kersti is now when it comes to family building. So without further ado, this is Kersti's fertility story. All right. So, Kersti, how are you? Thank you so much for doing this.
Allie, thank you so much.
Why am I shouting? I'm excited.
I actually have been anxious about this because I was just so excited to be part of it. And, and so enjoyed listening to all these conversations you've been having.
I can't believe you've listened to the podcast. Thank you so much. That means so much to me.
And also just to hear all the stories and it's that's basically why I got into it. Is just, I was so, well, for many reasons, and we'll get into those, but yeah.
Right. Well, let's start with your new short film. It's called Egg Party. I watched it this morning. It's so good and it's so relatable. So just instead of me telling people what it's about, how about you tell the listeners, what is it?
Well, my hope is right away, listeners can watch it. It'll be available online. So no need to wait. But
I will link to it as well on all my social media and Linktree and all that stuff.
So the Egg Party is about 6 30-something women coming together for an egg decorating party in Brooklyn. It's a not so sober event, and each woman is talking about their, it's a group of friends that are put together and they're laughing and they're talking about aging and fertility and beauty and, stuff that they're just friends. But what we've done is each woman gets their own like portrait and a portrait of what their egg is doing, that they've been decorating. And so one portrait is a woman, whose egg is on the back burner. One is a portrait of a woman who, and her egg is, floating in a glass of red wine. And then what we discover is that the group of friends have all come together for their friend Molly, who is experiencing miscarriage, and that they've actually come to be with her.
Yeah.
So it's a short film. It comes in under 10 minutes.
There's so much packed into that 10 minutes though. Like it's so layered and it's so well done. And you're right. There are these women that come together. It's almost like a fly on the wall experience because you're just kind of watching them hanging out and drinking and getting a little tipsy and talking about Botox. And, it's very realistic. It is like if you went to a friend's house in Brooklyn. So tell me about, when did you first get the idea? Because the story was your idea and you directed this as well.
Yeah. So this was my directorial debut, my normal
Congratulations. We need more female directors. I
agree. And we need more female centered stories. And that's but the idea actually came from a real life egg decorating party that I'd been invited to. I was in my mid 30s, and I had just been going through a breakup, and I had put into my phone, as I was like trying to find the address, I had put into my phone dying egg party spelled wrong, like dying versus,
right.
dying and Easter egg.
Oh my God. I love that.
Yeah. And I remember having this, I was like, that is so bleak. It is so bleak. You're in the middle of a breakup. You're just like, oh man, what is happening with my life? And so, but I got there, and it was a number of women that were shared. They had been close friends for many years. I was a little bit of an outsider. A lot of comedians were there, and they were dyeing eggs, like decorating eggs and talking about things that I had never, been able to say out of my face, which I think is what the gift of your podcast is as well, is that so many people we don't have anybody to talk to about these things. And so at that same moment, a number of friends were having this experience of miscarriage and, just quietly, privately suffering. And so that I had this story idea of a bunch of women coming together, and they're all there for a friend. And at that same moment, one of my best friends, Ashton, and her writing partner, Claire Kennedy, so it's Ashton Heil, Claire Kennedy, they jumped on and helped me co-write it. So they really helped me flesh it out, and they're in the film. They're two beautiful actors that are in the film. Mm-hmm. But I decided, even though acting is my background, that this felt right. Like I just knew exactly what I wanted to say with it directorially. So I stepped into that role, and it was truly one of the most satisfying experiences to do.
Did you guys film in New York?
We filmed in Brooklyn.
Okay.
We filmed March 14th, 15th, 2020. Do you remember this weekend?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the world shut down, right?
Just a little shut down. Yeah. I was able to secure a Panavision first-time filmmaker grant. The funny thing about Egg Party is that it has had a lot of good energy with it. I don't know anybody that does something creative, sometimes there's obstacles and then sometimes things are in flow. Mm-hmm. Egg Party has been in flow the entire time.
Wow.
Just to get fundraising, to get people just, maybe you feel this about your podcast, but people want to be part of something like this because it's needed. Mm-hmm. So I felt like we were really lucky. We were so lucky because so many things were going in our favor, even though there was a pandemic, at our door. Right. Honestly, knowing what we know now, we would not have filmed that weekend.
Right.
But, we did what we knew was the CDC's recommendations.
Totally. And nobody knew what was going on.
We opened the windows and we washed hands. Right. And I, aged 10 years as I called people 5 days later, 7 days later, 14 days later to make sure that we had all made it out healthy. And we did. Good. But so we shot in Brooklyn.
Remember those days when you're scrubbing the box of Triscuits, coming home from the grocery store and
oh my gosh, yes,
wiping everything. We just didn't know. Nobody knew. And that was so wild.
No.
Okay. So tell me, the message of the part of Egg Party is we trust you to choose. So tell me a little bit more about that and what that means to you and what kind of message you're trying to get out there.
So honestly, we had a very, like I said, Egg Party's been in flow. So as a directorial debut, that's that's a real gift, because I have heard of, like, you're trying to get it into the festival circuit. You're trying to just get it in front of an audience. We all get so much content every minute of the day. But because the story, I think people sense the heart behind the story. We've had a good festival run. We won a number of audience awards. We've been nominated for a lot of design awards, and there was a director nomination.
Whoa.
But oh, Allie, what was your question?
The question is that the message is like, we trust you.
Oh,
so what would you say about the message?
Okay, Allie. So this very critical event happened in June 2022, when Roe was overturned. And it became really, our little film became more prescient than we ever anticipated. And so each woman in this film is very distinct. And yes, it is a very short, but each one has made a very different choice with their lives. When your listeners watch it, and I hope that they do, because it was made for them, each woman, is in the flow of their life trying to figure out what they want to do with their creativity or, their fertility. And so it became apparent that we needed to just get this quickly to people. There's a way to get content to people. You can put it on Amazon and people pay 99 cents, and the reality is, like, we wouldn't reach the audiences we need if we put a paywall on. Mm-hmm. It's intended to give comfort to people, and say that we stand with you. We stand sentinel alongside women and families that are wanting motherhood through pregnancy. But also there's a series of characters in that piece that in our egg party, that one in particular that doesn't want children. And how controversial is that? How there are women that they just don't feel that push. And then there's also a woman in the film that has put her eggs on ice. She's doing it in her time. And then, and then there's another woman that's already had her children. And so it's like each woman is doing something different. And what I think is neat about this group of friends is there's no judgment on where you're at. I think that's why we felt Egg Party needed to live online. And our hope is that, our ideal audience member was a woman in her bathroom watching it, feeling not so alone.
Totally.
And then maybe sharing it with a friend.
Yeah. Well, the one that
rinse and repeat. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you could watch this over and over with friends and by yourself and with a partner, if you have one, with a loved one, with a parent, to try to explain what's going on. I definitely want to talk about Roe, the overturning of Roe. But before that, one of the ones that really resonated with me was the character that you mentioned before, where it said she bought the perfect baby mobile like 3 years ago. And that was just like, oh, how many of us have done that, going through infertility or just hopeful intended parents, who haven't started yet, but like see something and someday you want to be a parent, and then it just sits there in a box unopened because it's not happening for whatever reason. So that one, just like when that came up on the screen, her portrait, I was like, oh, I feel that so deep and I feel that so hard. So tell me a little bit more about that and why you felt that was important to convey.
Yeah, no, I think that's our final character, Molly, who we discover the whole party has really been come together for her, because so when you see her and her portrait, she's there saying, she's had this baby mobile for 3 years and it's still unopened. And then you see a portrait of her egg, and I don't want to reveal too much about what happened.
I just realized that wasn't a spoiler, was it?
No, not at all. Okay, I think it's actually exactly right for our listeners here, because this is, again, what the movie was for, was to give comfort to those at that moment in the big question of what is happening. And I think that is the most heart-wrenching moment. I think also Egg Party is an open question, because we don't know the answer of how it goes for Molly. We don't know the answer how it goes for any of these women. And if another woman would suddenly, next year be in Molly's shoes saying, my career, no more. And now suddenly she's faced with infertility. I mean, these things are big, big questions.
Yeah. I mean, I like that it's not wrapped up with a neat little bow at the end, because so often that's not how life is, especially with infertility. It's like, you can do all the things and you still might not get the outcome you're hoping for. I host a fertility rally support group with my co-founder every Wednesday. So we had it last night. And that was one of the things we were talking about, was like, infertility is the only thing that we could all think of where like you can do everything. You can work so hard. You can like literally, like, it's like studying for a test, studying for exams, doing everything right. And you still might not have quote unquote success, whatever that means to you at the end. And I was like, we're like, can we think of any other situation where that's the case? It's really like, sometimes it's just not
an
fair.
acting career.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay.
I tease.
No.
No, I mean, there is like, it's like, I love how you say that, because, you have you dot your I's, you cross your T's, and life is so gray. We live in the gray and we don't want it. And good people sometimes, I don't know the outcome for Molly and her family in this story. What I have been really surprised by our audiences is I thought this was really going to be for women of a certain age that, were like me, suddenly being like, oh my gosh, and I grew up in Colorado. So many of my friends had their kids really young. But I was in New York City, and like, I woke up one day and I was like, oh, this is a thing. Did I miss a memo?
You mean like egg freezing, or just trying to have babies? Or,
thinking about these things. And then suddenly it was in my world that people were having, were struggling. So I think that's been, the audiences, it was intended for, women that were in that, question of motherhood and what to do, which, I think Roe has put a legal query in place there, but I had a lot of men approach me after our screenings, more than I anticipated, that spoke about their desire for parenthood. And actually, I had a couple of friends I had coffee with, and I did not know, the suffering of those wanting to be fathers if they're unpartnered, and they don't know if that will ever be part of their story,
right?
Or their partner is struggling, and they, it's, so that for me was eye-opening. I had someone also talk about how they had never seen women together like this as they see it in our film.
Right.
They didn't know women talked like this. I mean, that's my mom's like number one note. She's like, why do they say the F word all the time? Like that was really what my mommy took away from it. I was like, Mom, there's there's more happening in this film. She was
that's
like,
amazing.
Why do they say the F word all the time?
That's amazing.
But the truth is like, I don't think we see enough content of very smart, strong women, speaking together,
right,
about something that isn't a man.
It is so cool. And again, I said this before, but literally there's packed so much into this. And I need to watch it again after we have this conversation, because I know I'm going to pick up on other things as well. And I think that's what's so cool about this, is that people can watch it over and over, and in different circumstances and in different, groups or alone, like we said. So it really does, like, there's a lot to it. So kudos to you on that. Let's talk about Roe, like in the wake of the Roe crisis.
Let's go in.
Okay. So it's interesting that you started filming this, obviously, early pandemic, and then, Roe wasn't overturned until later, but this has always been kind of lurking in the background, right? Like this potential that, women's health was going to feel threatened, or there might be some sort of crisis or overturning in the future. I think we've all kind of felt that uncertainty that this is not always going to be a guarantee that we can decide what we want to do with our own body and our own fertility. So tell me about, that was a long-winded question, but tell me about, why in the wake of the Roe overturning, this is even more important than ever.
Yeah, I think for Roe, I agree with you, just oddly, I had taken a course on the Supreme Court 2 semesters ago, and I had written my paper on Roe. So wow. I was aware more structurally of the court and also of the decision itself than I had ever been. And so as we were kind of tiptoeing into a way more conservative court, and each of them had promised, we'll never do this, we'll never do this. I was way aware that it was a real possibility that they could. I continue to be shocked that they did, because that's a very overarching decision to make for so many women's lives, families' lives, really. Why Roe, it was an imperfect decision. The court that made that decision was also a political court. It was a liberal political court. And even our great Ruth Bader Ginsburg had said that we overstepped, because the Supreme Court is not a legislative body. They really shouldn't be making law, but we have had kind of an ineffective legislative body for about 50, 60 years. So all these pieces that law has not been created to protect people. So they keep getting rushed to the Supreme Court, and they make a decision, and that somehow becomes law of the land. Mm-hmm. What was interesting is historically, many states before Roe were already trending towards a much, much more, abortion friendly, or like choice. I want to say choice here, choice friendly situation. What Roe may or may not have caused, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg said this, it caused a backlash of something that is now known as the pro-life movement. And it became a kind of a rallying cry, more so than I think was ever before. And so when they overturned Roe, we lost a right. And states, women in different states are going to be protected differently, and this cannot be. What I feel is it is clear to me that we need an equal rights amendment in the Constitution, so that regardless of the makeup of the court and the way that they read our great document, the U.S. Constitution, it will be so clear that legally a woman's constitutional rights cannot fall away.
Yeah.
It's a pregnant woman is a very complicated legal person, because when do 2 citizens begin? I can't say, nor can ethicists, moralists, or lawyers. No one can agree. And so,
speaking of living in the gray, right? Like it's just so different depending on who you ask.
So here we are in a patriarchal system that cannot assist women as legal persons, because we actually do something miraculous. We carry another person. And so in a sense, these laws were never made for us. And so I am demanding better law.
Yes.
Because inevitably, yes, there's always going to be conservative bozos around. Like that's just the way it is. And also there might be just people that disagree with me, and I'm willing to talk to pro-life friends. I believe so. I am not pro-abortion. I am pro-natalist policies that make it extraordinarily possible for parenthood to happen. So that because abortion is going to happen.
Right.
Sorry, data shows that it's going to happen. So let's find, there's good data also to show what brings those rates down.
Right. Well, there's also, that area that we talk about a lot in the infertility world where, you have to terminate a pregnancy for medical reasons. You have to get an abortion, or else mother or baby or both could die, So that is one of those things that is very terrifying, I think, as a patient. And, I'm done building my family. But I have so many friends who had to do that. And were like, if it were different and I weren't able to do that, I could have died, or, who knows what terrible things could have happened. So, there's that aspect of it too. It's not just the abortion where someone goes out and gets pregnant and then decides they don't want to have the baby. There's medical reasons for abortion. And even, a miscarriage, the medical term for that is a spontaneous abortion, when it stops growing. So like, there's so much gray.
I love that you're bringing this up, because that, I think, is what the urgency we felt was the question about maternal health.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right.
Again, we'll talk about, people have abortions for any number of reasons, and it's not my reason to judge. But what's happening is that women that actually do indeed want to keep their pregnancies, and something happens, and your family's with you, it's the best medical choice available, the only medical choice available, and these doctors' hands are tied, and the woman may die. Grace Paley, I don't know if you know her, the writer. May I offer? I think she's in her 80s now, but for some reason I had picked up a bunch of her essays, and she wrote an essay in the 40s about abortion, and she wrote about how, when she was, she had very difficult pregnancies. And so she, in the 30s, and so she and her husband, when it was clear that they went to the doctor together, and they were, had to terminate the pregnancy. And then they put in a bunch of laws, like anti-abortion laws in New York. And suddenly all these women couldn't get care when they needed it. And she had some friends die. And this was in the 40s.
Yeah.
Or they go, to somebody shady that's willing, but they're not getting proper care.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was, that was in the 40s. Like,
wow.
We've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
So she was there with her husband, they would have lost her.
Yeah. I posted something the other day that I saw on Planned Parenthood, and it was a graphic that just said, there's many reasons to get an abortion, and they're all personal. Like, back the fuck off, everyone else, like, sorry, Kersti's mom.
Yeah. Sorry. She can fucking deal with it. She's great. No, I love that because I just think of, Kersti now, has the question of motherhood looming over her, and sitting with women that have been, struggling, or sitting with women that are with their children or something like that. It's like, I'm now kind of like, oh man, where's my future on this? And it's how can I take the best care I can? Because right now I'm kind of in that moment of I'd like to continue directing. My acting career is I've had a very full year with my acting career. When do you do this?
Right. I'd love to unpack that a little bit more. Tell me where, if you don't mind, can you share with us where you are with that mentally, physically, all that?
I think that like every woman, you step into your doctor in your 30s every time and go, just checking in. And of course, a New York doctor is going to say something very different than my Colorado doctor.
Totally.
I think my gyno in New York was like, are you 40 yet? You'll be fine. We'll talk when you're 40.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay.
No, it's so funny, Kersti, because I moved from Chicago to New York when I was 29, on the verge of turning 30. And all my friends in Chicago, my college friends and stuff, had started having babies, and I moved around that time. So we put it off because we were like, new city, new everything, new friends, new lives. We can't have a baby right now. I don't even know how to ride the subway, so we put it off and off. And in New York, that was totally understandable. And that's just kind of how the culture is. So it's funny that you say that, and that's why I feel like I found myself in the secondary infertility position, because I didn't even start trying for baby number 2 until I was like 37, having no idea what was happening to me physically as I reached my mid to late 30s. I didn't know.
Yeah. No, these are the big queries of the world. And then, and that's in Egg Party. I think that's it's like a bunch of very busy, extraordinary women trying to make something with their lives. And then suddenly you wake up and you're like, but this is a meaningful part of my life that I want.
Right.
Like, and so
I think I cut you off. So back to you,
no,
if you don't mind. Yeah.
You didn't at all. But that like, I think that's where I'm at, is like, I'm an auntie of many. It gives me great joy. And I also think there's such wisdom in stepping into the river of time with another generation. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of gifts that come from that. And it's a good investment as you age to have young people wanting to care for you, I think. But also it's like, I would love to put that energy forward in whatever way, mm-hmm. I've had friends that have decided to do this by themselves. I've had friends that, inevitably chose adoption. I've had friends that, definitely are partnered and, but they don't have a lot of resources, but they're making it work. And then I have friends that have tons of resources and they use surrogacy, so it's like a very, wow, this is a wild, like Allie, you could talk so many different ways about how people make their families.
Oh my God. That's why the podcast people are like, is it just going to keep going? I'm like, we're 100. We can have almost 200 episodes in, and literally we've never repeated a story. There's similarities, but I still interview people where I'm like, wow, haven't heard that one before. Like there's just so many ways to go about this or not, and it's changing even by the year. The technology is changing. The medical breakthroughs are changing. Tests that you can have done. Like it's kind of cool to be doing it in real time to see all these developments and innovations and, just ways that you can go about building a family. It's unreal. That's why this is so exciting to me still.
Well, you're in flow. I sense that you're in flow with this.
I like that term. I do have my period right now too.
Me too.
Do you? Oh my God.
Yes. But like,
it's really in flow.
Yeah, we are really in flow. But that's something I've been thinking about a lot. And actually, I think that's where Egg Party also came from, is cycles. Like how do we honor cycles? And like, yes, I want to be 21 forever. But there's a wonderful cycle of womanhood that, that is mother, that is, and it's like, how do we step into that and really hear the rhythms of the body? And so Egg Party, you'll see in some of the design choices, it's a late spring day. So meaning that these women are no longer in the early spring of their lives. They might be stepping into a deeper summer of their life. And yes, there might be a time of autumn that we discuss, and that will be our another podcast, maybe when we have that, Allie.
Yeah, for sure.
In 20 years or whatever. But I am always seeking women, mentors that are 10, 15, 20 years ahead of me, to show me the way of how to elegantly bridge into that next cycle. Because I think Hollywood, I work as an actor, such a youth-based culture that, we need these kind of stories in the world that is sexy and wonderful to just, bridge into these pieces of being a woman.
Mm-hmm. You have such a poetic way of speaking. Like it's so beautiful. And again, I can't wait to watch it again after we get off this call, because now I'm going to like absorb a totally different meaning. I feel like
you'll also hear the music, which is done by my brother, by the way.
Shout out to the brother.
Bro, but very and his husband who did the clarinet. I tell you, it's such a family affair. That's
so cool.
But the music is moving at a very high tempo. It's because these women's lives are picking up. Time is of the essence, and there is an anxiety around just like what's happening in their bodies and in their lives that make them suddenly feel like time is speeding up. Where like so it feels a little like, oh, there's time, like, it just feels a little like, late spring, going into, into a summer. So that was something too, that I've been thinking about is, Like, what does that mean?
I love it. And I think even, it's so important that stories like this exist because you're getting the conversations going, right? You're like spurring along these conversations and making it more normal for people to, if they see this film, they might say, oh, I never even really thought about that. Or, oh, so-and-so had a miscarriage and I didn't know what to say. And now I feel like maybe I should say something, just again, I'm such a big advocate for talking and sharing if you feel comfortable, if you're that kind of person. But I think it's so cool that this could be kind of the catalyst for some of those really important conversations that need to be had.
Well, thanks. And I also believe that you seem to have a gift at allowing those spaces.
Oh, gosh.
Good for you.
What did you call it before we started? Something steward? Empathy steward?
Yes.
Trauma steward?
What did trauma steward.
Trauma steward. I'm going to put that on my resume.
There's a book about my best friend who's a therapist. There's a book. She was like, you need to read The Trauma Steward.
Oh my God. I have to check that out.
Because, people do want to come up and talk to me about wherever they are. And I am so honored and also at times ill-prepared because I have not necessarily had these crises yet, or may we all kind of be together, because the truth is we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Those are the facts.
100%. 100%. Well, this has been so cool to talk to you. You guys, everybody, please check out Egg Party. It's available online. I'm going to link it everywhere that I can because I want as many people to see this important film as possible. It's, it's kind of touches on the Roe crisis. It touches on, sisterhood, motherhood, friends, miscarriage, infertility, egg freezing, pregnancy, women's health, maternal health, all the things. So much is packed into this under 10-minute film. I mean, what would you do with a full-length movie? Like I can't even imagine how.
Oh my heavens.
Is that next?
We're working on a number of things.
Okay.
But I think my work now, the artistic question, I so believe in creating women's stories. So
yes,
that will be
kindred spirits. Same
that will
here.
Always be the undercurrent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I realized because I'm like, how did I end up in this field? I'm a journalist. I started out in magazines and I used to write about music and entertainment. And then I'm like, oh, I've always told stories. That's all I've ever wanted to do was tell stories. My favorite thing to do was writing profiles about people and telling their stories. So I'm like, oh, I guess it all makes sense. It was all kind of leading here anyway.
The story is so healing. And I hope people continue to share their stories because you don't know who needs to hear it. Like that's been my shock is like, you don't know who it might help.
Right. And even the audience or someone that sees this might not even know that they need it until they need it. You know what I mean? Like, it could awaken something in people too, which is pretty cool.
So I think for those that are out, because I mean, we're all artists, and when you're a woman and you're you're in your fertility question, you're a creative being. I mean, women are creative beings, and so it's not you just keep you have to be in the conversation of your own creativity. I think in your writing or your music or whatever you utilize to kind of manage the feels. I think it helps.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Definitely check out Egg Party. I'm going to have the link to it in both my social media and also in the show notes to this episode. So thank you to Kersti. I feel like I made a friend for life. We really bonded over a lot of different stuff, and she's so cool. So really proud of what she did with this film and can't wait to see what else is in the future. So check out her stuff. Also, guys, as always, please check out Fertility Rally. This is the community I wish I had when I was going through it. We are thriving. We are growing. We have 4 support groups a week. We have 3 private Facebook groups. We have events. We actually have our big Fertility Rally live event coming up on October 22nd. And the big announcement is that tickets are free this time for the first time ever. This is our 5th time. We decided to make it as far-reaching as possible. So we were able to forego the cost of the tickets, and everybody is welcome. So if you register for a ticket and entry into the event, you have 30 days to watch everything, but definitely come live if you can, because we have interactive chats, we have surprises, we have giveaways all day. So it's a really, really great event about uplifting each other, educating each other, inspiring each other, and just having a fucking awesome time. So that's Fertility Rally Live on 10/22. It's a Saturday. And you can check out my social at Infertile Stories and the Fertility Rally social at Fertility Rally on Instagram for more info, for ticket links, all the stuff. So we hope to see you guys there. Spread the word. And thanks again for listening. Talk to you guys next time.